adept utilization of his two existential concepts. This couldn't be allowed to continue. The intent of this undefined existence weaved as he sent communications to alert even the white hats of his findings, the eyes on his wings opening like brilliant suns at this moment, and causing a circular blast of vibrations to spread out across the nearby waters as he felt for something. And before long, he sensed a blinding brilliance far, far away in these endless waters of the sixth gradation of extremity. A brilliance of a being who seemed unfettered as he continued to rise freely. Chapter 2863, The Protagonist, 3. Every time that the intent of the undefined existence even began to weave against the insurgent, he disappeared. With this reality established, the brilliant figure of the obsidian entity sensed the brilliance far, far away in the waters of the sixth gradation of extremity as its body flickered towards this direction. And within moments, it neared the insurgent once more. But this time, no intent was quickly formed against this being. As ever so slowly, the undefined existence approached the insurgent. Noah's figure was rising across the gradations of extremity once again, as he refined even more devoured authority, his whole existence pulsing with an ecstatic sensation as everything continued to rise to a greater level. He felt the overpowering aura of the undefined existence once more. And this time, he didn't disappear right away. His eyes flickered with golden brilliance as he came to a stop and stared towards the calmly floating, undefined existence before him. Their exquisite features, the serpentine eyes and wide-spanning wings, the gazes that portrayed utmost coldness and immensity as if everything was in the palm of their hands. The pair of serpentine eyes on the center of its tenebrous wings that seemed just about to pulse and eradicate everything out of existence. Noah stared at this glorious, undefined existence as he spoke out with a flash of tyranny. "An ugly little thing, aren't you?" Whap! Not even an instant passed after his words were uttered. He disappeared out of existence right away. The eyes of the undefined existence that had begun to inadvertently weave its point. Extreme vibrated with terrifying apathy, as after having its dignity trampled on, its authority had moved automatically, and the insurgent before him had disappeared before this weaving could be expressed. The undefined existence took a moment as the buzzing apathy in its eyes calmed, their gaze beginning to pulse and release vibrations outwardly a moment later. It couldn't allow a mere seed's words to interfere with its plans, as within a few milliseconds, there! It once more sensed a blazing brilliance that was even brighter than before, its massive figure making its way across the waters of the sixth gradation of extremity and appearing before the insurgent again. This time, the insurgent was doing something even more extreme, as an illusory purple throne of royalty had materialized behind him, his figure being seated on it as he turned to look towards the undefined existence, as if a seated emperor was gazing at a visitor with his immeasurable majesty. Noah's eyes held burning golden flames as his brow rose while he spoke again. "Can't even control your anger at a slight provocation. You do not seem as advanced and terrifying as others see you to be." His words were meant to cut to the one weakness he had sensed, the weaving of the emotions and thoughts of pride and majesty of this being. Yet the undefined existence did not erupt with any weaving out authority as it continued to float towards him slowly. The obsidian chain rising from its head shone with profound tenebrous brilliance as it coolly spoke. At and da, and da. Words that Noah could grasp very little of echoed from the undefined existence as its face holding a singular eye had its feature curve into a terrifying smile. The singular serpentine eye smiled. "You could not even understand my words unless I wish you to, and you think you're something that will cause waves and disruptions?" Boom! At this moment in time, on this momentous day, the extremity of quintessence and an undefined existence connected. The ones above extremity appeared face to face and exchanged words. Noah's eyes were calm at the provocation of this creature before him as it continued. "Do you know what I first said to you, little thing?" As the undefined existence spoke, it continued to float ever closer towards him, as its massive figure only became more and more menacing. Its eyes smiled with horrifying cruelty as it continued. "I said that everything you're doing, the fight you think you're putting up, the existential extremity authorities you're forging and elevating, all of it is hopeless. It's not even a matter of uncertainty whether you will go far, whether your existential extremity authorities will somehow reach a level to match vacuous and vitalist. Even if you struggle to reach that point, those above can very easily erase everything about you. Hopeless, little insurgent. That is what your struggle is. That is what your whole existence is. A hopeless endeavor, so why not stop this futile struggle and end things early? Why not save yourself the heartache, blood, sweat, and tears that will uncontrollably flow from your orifices in time? Come, let me help you resolve this struggle you are starting early and give you liberation. Let me help you, you worthless little seed. Utmost cruelty and unfathomable brilliance shone within its serpentine eyes as it radiated pure emotions of extinction and cataclysm with its words alone. It came within a mile of Noah's visage seated on the throne as it spoke such heavy words. On the throne, the extremity of quintessence buzzed with tendrils of tyranny. He tapped on his throne with a devilish smile while looking ahead. Were my actions hopeless, you wouldn't be here wasting my time with monologues, ugly thing. But do you know what I love to see the most, ugly thing? He leaned forward on his throne. The protagonist leaned forward while gazing with cold brilliance at the undefined existence as his words echoed out like booming symphonies. What I love the most is seeing that expression of pride on beings like you, that expression of arrogance and narcissism that you are at the very peak, untouchable and above all others. I love seeing that because it makes it all that much more fulfilling when inevitably you will soon be groveling at my feet with that arrogance nowhere to be seen. The only thing left of your hubris will be shock and disbelief at how it was even possible, how a being like you is kneeling at my feet about to die. I can already see that a weak one like you, in particular, may even beg for your life when that point comes and ask for mercy. What is your name, ugly thing? Just so that I can remember what you are when the day you grovel at my feet comes. Chapter 2864. The Protagonist. A4. Words of utter disrespect echoed out from the protagonist as he half expected to have the construct for infinite log-on and log-off activated an instant later. But shockingly, the undefined existence only radiated a shocking splendor as its serpentine eyes shone with bloody murder. They radiated such an intense emotion of apathy and cruelty, unlike anything Noah had seen before. You didn't erupt with those unstable emotions of hubris swirling inside you after that. Noah's eyes squinted at this entity as he continued while leaning back on his throne. You may actually pose a slight challenge on my path, ugly thing. So, what is your name? Or I can only keep on referring to you as ugly thing. When more of you come, you'll be ugly thing I, and the next one will be ugly thing 2. The next one is coming soon, right? I expect you've already called for help after sensing your own inadequacy and weakness, ugly thing 1. His best weapon against them was currently their high pride and arrogance as his authorities weren't able to do anything to them. So he used this weapon to injure the mind of this entity before him as much as he could as an instant later. The undefined existence placed its crystalline obsidian hands on its head as its singular eye was covered, its intent letting out a cruel laugh that held boundless anger within it. You worthless fucking seed, you cannot imagine how much I'm looking forward to dissecting you and breaking you down from existence. But you have attitude, you nugatory little insect, so I'll give you the honor of knowing who will be the first to tear you apart. His hand left his head as his serpentine eye opened to reveal shocking animosity and cruelty. From the legacy of Ignatius, I am Larsus Corvin.
Why?
Brilliance shone from the mere mention of his name as vacuous extremity authority buzzed with majesty. Larsus Corvin, of the legacy of Ignatius. Noah repeated the words with a smile as he rose, his throne disappearing behind him as he began to rise up ever so slowly once more. Thank you for sharing information of your name and where you come from, you dumb fucking thing. I'll see you soon. With such words left behind, Noah began to rise across the gradations again as a mile from him. The figure of Larsus buzzed powerfully. But not an instant later, a blinding white light bloomed as from another direction. Vitalis Extremity Authority blared with wild abandon as another undefined existence appeared. The moment they saw Noah's figure, their arms rose and began to weave with authority, as whap! Noah's figure automatically disappeared. The Vitalis undefined existence came to float a distance away from Larcius Corvin as its eyes buzzed with brilliance. I had to test it to confirm your words. But was that insect just calling you and insulting you by your name, Larcius? The newly arriving undefined existence raised their brows as beside them, Larcius burned with interminable rage as he spoke. Countermeasures need to be drawn against him. The gradations of extremity need to be covered as much as possible. The gradations are nigh endless for all of us to cover. You know that. I say we reach out to the existential engineers. They are most adept on absolute existential restrictions and may be able to counter and isolate the insurgent before he grows any further. The gaze of Larcius shone at such words as he turned towards the entity beside him. You white hats are always so quick to reach out for help. We invoke the existential engineers and we won't stop hearing about it for eons. It's better than allowing a threat of corruption to spread. It's a measure of safety that you black hats can't seem to grasp. A sense of tension filled the surroundings as both of these entities stared at each other coldly. Far, far away from them, within these very same sixth gradations of extremity, Noah's figure appeared once more as dazzling prompts bloomed before him. Infinite log on and log off was activated automatically after sensing your existence being targeted. A minuscule shred, 0.0001%, of the authority of your enemy was successfully devoured. You existential extremity authorities are refining and purifying the foreign existential extremity authority. Your understanding of the undefined existences is nearing a critical level. Tremendous gains were being made as his existential extremity rune scriptures exploded past 6 million, with his own existential extremity authorities continuing to rise to a shocking level as at this time, the existential authority of the protagonist fully resonates and settles with your existence. With its advent, new absolute existential constructs viable only for you are born. As he rose upwards across the clear waters, his visage shone with aurum brilliance as the protagonist and its unique state of being with himself made way for something unfathomable. The protagonist asks for all authorities to remember what its weaving actually means. The other concepts of extremity within Noah were pulled upon to listen as existence-shattering prompts unveiled themselves. In certain stories, a protagonist is surrounded and guided by a prophecy as a form of MacGuffin. You can now design your own prophecy to go towards fulfilling your aims. Once a prophecy is made, the existential extremity authority of the protagonist will distort reality through any means necessary to fulfill the prophecy. In other stories, the protagonist starts out average and normal, yet as the plot progresses, they come to find out they descend from an ancient faction, or carry a royal or unique lineage, innate ability, or a power of some hidden fantastical world or dimension that they then delved into and explore, or that they're some chosen one. You can now design something innate or unique to you that will inexplicably come to aid you on your journey. Two ridiculous constructs came forward from the protagonist as just by looking at them, Noah saw their potential for utterly existence-breaking actions. Chapter 2865, The Protagonist, 5. The two prompts that had just come down were utterly ridiculous ones. Noah's vision shifted greatly, as instead of the waters of the sixth gradation of extremity being his main focus, his eyes shone with brilliance inside the infinite hyperversal haven. The infinite hyperversal haven that was abuzz with activity as entities went in and out of rifts, their eyes holding a sense of awe and majesty, as by this point in time, they all knew the dungeon raid rift system and how they could attain wondrous loot that propelled their power rapidly. The emotion being weaved in their hearts was a unique one that was closely coming to the border with obsession. Many entities were also spurred on after watching the battle between the queens of the infinite hyperversal haven and a single terrifying enemy that stood against them, the existential raid boss, Ruination. This battle had been the longest one that had played out, as it showed multiple beings at the peak of power facing a single one, and yet they still couldn't attain victory against Ruination. It was a lesson in the understanding of extremes. How even though the queens of the infinite hyperversal haven had multiple concepts of extremity in their hands through the extremity of quintessence, they didn't truly understand them. How could they manipulate their intent? How could they understand their weaving? Such a reality was why at this moment, the figure of Barbatos was surrounded by broken skeletons, as dozens of middle-grade armaments of extremity surrounded her, and the visage of Queen Adelaide was standing in front of Ruination herself, as while encased in ice, she sighed and spoke lightly. Worthiness aside, we need to spend time familiarizing ourselves with everything. Thank you for the reminder. I yield. Her figure disappeared into stellar snow willingly as she replied to the question Ruination had asked about in the beginning of their battle. Fuck! A profanity was the last thing heard on the battlefield as the rows of illusory armaments of extremity struck down from all sides to finish off Barbatos. This was the battle streamed live for all to see. An exchange of the extremes of the extremity of quintessence, a glimmer of quintessence, infinity, and tyranny. Unbeknownst to them, Noah had added a fourth existential extremity authority at this moment, as with his main body secluded in the pocket of space where a curved throne made of an infinity symbol stood. He was currently reading the weaving of this new concept and what opportunities it laid out for him. Beside him, Ruination pulsed with the weavings of intent that explained the battle she had finished, where she systematically broke down his harem, part of his mind sighing and preparing for the trouble to come, as he prepared dozens of planolith crystallos and armaments of extremity for them. At the same time, the manifestation of the infinite hyperversal haven had a serene gaze as she uttered out, a prophecy or a hidden descent. The means of the protagonist were unique ones, as even she was computing what could best be done with them. In some stories, there was always a prophecy passed down since ancient times that would come to revolve around the protagonist. From the past stories Noah read, he knew they mainly came in verses or riddles that the main character and his friends had to solve to better understand where the conflict and difficulty was heading. A lot of the times, the characters wouldn't find out what the prophecy truly meant until it actually occurred and played out, with the excerpt of the book being abruptly ended as the main character looks at an unfolding reality in shock while repeating out the words of the prophecy, setting up the next stage of their journey, and giving the readers a wait time of years before the next installment was produced by the author. Now, Noah could design his own prophecy as if he were truly the main character, and he would know its meaning intricately, as if he were the author that designed it in the first place. His eyes burned with ingenuity and possibilities as he thought of the current unfolding reality around him and the enemies that he faced. A prophecy could foretell a journey in a short term or span a really long time, but what he knew of the unrecorded histories was limited. He could design something abstract and yet capable of influencing his immediate future and beyond, with his eyes beginning to burn with an aurum glow in the next moment as the aurum hyperversal existential extremity rune scriptures of the protagonist began to radiate a grand and mighty power. His lips were curved into a smile as he spoke, beginning to etch a prophecy into reality as if he were the author of his own story. Waters crossed with unimaginable speed, immeasurable extremes all brought under a single creed. One by one, legacies shall fall. White and black will come under the heel of the call. Only one extreme will be left at the end of it all. Unshackled lands will rise above recorded havens. Annals will fall as an endless weaving awakens. Every line Noah spoke resonated and buzzed with the surrounding reality as the words were etched with golden brilliance before him. A prophecy. He had designed his own prophecy as it foretold of multiple futures, and he also wanted one that would have a direct effect on his current unfolding reality. Waters crossed with unimaginable speed. The moment this line of the prophecy was etched, the hundreds of thousands of aurum hyperversal existential extremity rune scriptures of the protagonist blared as they pulled upon the existential extremity authorities of quintessence, infinity, and tyranny, along with the weavings of all of Noah's other concepts. It did all of this as once more, when Noah's vision shifted back to the waters of the gradations of extremity. Boom! His body was shooting upwards like a speeding bullet as the waters around him converged and were swallowed up by his existence rapidly. His extremity rune scriptures jumping by hundreds of thousands each moment as he scaled at an unprecedented pace. Chapter 2866, The Protagonist, 6. It was the first line of the prophecy, and yet its unfolding effects absolutely ignored the heavy pressure and reality of the sixth gradation of extremity as Noah climbed up at a shocking speed, with this only being the first and immediate result so far, as it was only the beginning. This was because the other concepts of the protagonist were weaving in their own unique ways due to the advent of this prophecy. The extremity of plot dances with glee at the development. The extremity of paradox pulls on every ounce of its power to express the established prophecy. His extremes weaved as above the infinite hyperversal haven. A booming symphony began to echo out as a booming paradoxical voice echoed out. The extremity of the protagonist has laid down a prophecy. The minds of all beings in the infinite hyperversal haven shook. They gazed up towards the peak of the extremity vein as golden words began to form. Each one spoke out with great valor and power as if they deserved to be known. Waters crossed with unimaginable speed, immeasurable extremes all brought under a single creed. One by one, legacies shall fall. White and black will come under the heel of the call. Only one extreme will be left at the end of it all. Unshackled lands will rise above recorded havens. Annals will fall as an endless weaving awakens. The visage of the Sumerian architect Ishtar and Sargon trembled at the golden words the size of cosmos etched near the peak of the extremity vein brilliantly for all to see. Henry gazed at the means of his father calmly as the queens of the infinite hyperversal haven reflecting on the power they had attained also gazed up wordlessly. Kazuhiko blinked as he could barely get his words out, but his thoughts were vibrant ones. A prophecy? Protagonist? What the fuck? Shock and pure adulation coursed through the minds of Noah's closest people as they wondered what crazy reality-altering things he was doing now. But they would be among the minority. Because the announcement of the first prophecy did not just end within the infinite hyperversal haven, in the vitalis and vacuous hyperversal domains. Within the havens of these lands, bathed in their own existential extremity authorities. A paradoxical light of existence and non-existence boomed out as within each haven, golden words began to be etched as a heavy and resonant voice boomed out with it, as if it were a grand declaration. Within the supernal haven of dissolution, the main body of Emperor Shao was within a gorgeous white pool of vitalis, as he grasped a middle-grade vitalis planolith crystallis, his expression full of complexities when he raised his head in shock, his will spanning outwards and gazing at the far-distant skies of the supernal haven of dissolution as grand golden words began to be etched along with a resonant voice ringing out. Waters crossed with unimaginable speed. The moment these golden words appeared and began ringing out, tendrils of pure vitalis hyperversal authority instantly erupted and rained down to tear them apart, with Emperor Shao witnessing something shocking as in the skies. A rift tore open as records spilled out to reveal an undefined existence shining with glorious light. Its serpentine eyes were currently blazing with mad anger as it waved its butterfly-like wings behind its back, gusts of white light instantly blooming out to entirely erase the golden words that had appeared. A moment later, this undefined existence flickered out and disappeared. A sense of awe and trepidation filled Emperor Shao, as the whole Celestia extremity lineage in the surrounding archipelagos were roused to activity, powerful beings raising their eyes and wills as the voice of the golden words that had appeared still rang out in their minds. In the veils of records and far distant histories, within the veil of Arcadia, the burly tanned figure of the extremity of steel opened his eyes with a trace of shock and spoke out heavily. One by one, legacies shall fall. White and black will come under the heel of the call. These words were profane and filled with utmost disrespect against the very existential extremity authorities governing vitalis and vacuous hyperversal domains. And they rang out across records and havens, as this single action caused the primogenitor of steel to gaze towards Caragalus with shining eyes. The two beings looked at each other as they realized someone was truly waging war against the ones above extremity, and they had enough authority to even taunt them and lay out some form of a prophecy. It was a shocking development, as they knew on this day, winds of great change were about to bloom, far away from them, within the nether haven of dissolution. In front of the massive purple monolith floating in space, multiple rifts tore open as heavy records spilled out, one undefined existence after another stepping out as their figures shone gloriously with white brilliance. Yet their serpentine eyes were filled with coldness as at the forefront, an undefined existence with golden flames covering the exterior of her wings and the rims of her pupils spoke out as her intent was made known. One by one, legacies shall fall. How does the insurgent know about our legacies already? Her voice was of utmost coldness and filled with immeasurable weight, as of the multiple undefined existence that had appeared here. All were silent until one began to weave their intent carefully. A black hat that came across it in the gradations of extremity was loose with their intent. A heavy silence descended as the foremost appearing undefined existence pulsed with coldness. This insurgent has gone too far and is growing bolder by the minute. A resolution is a must, and quickly. A terrifying weaving began to bloom as at this moment in time, the honor and glory of powers that very few knew or even understood were brought to light. Chapter 2867. The protagonist. 7. The newly appearing undefined existence that took the lead amongst the over a dozen currently in front of the existential dungeon monolith was a particularly terrifying one, as her words seemed to be the law. Our legacy of Al-Abalam is not one to loosely mince the weaving of existence. Our existential engineers have spoken. They need samples of these two existential extremity authorities being utilized by the insurgent and the other corrupted seeds. The legacy of Al-Abalam. This was the second legacy mentioned after the one that Noah had learned about, the legacy of Ignatius. Yes, Cavalier Raylera. As the intents weaved, the undefined existences waved their hands to reveal glistening white glass tubes that had tremendously sharp needles at their very ends. In addition to this, the visage